What's up, fungal associates? Welcome to Completely Arbortrary, the podcast about trees and other related topics. I am one of your hosts. My name is Alex Crowson, and I'm alongside, as always, the incredible, the edible, Casey Clapp.
That's me, Alex. Good day, good evening, good morning, and good night.
Good day to you, Casey.
Yes, I'm reading through the last of a book here.
Casey did so much research for this episode that he is cramming a little bit in as we speak.
That's exactly right. Did you know that Athena, the daughter of the supreme god Zeus, gave the olive tree, our subject today, Alex, to the Athenians?
Wow.
There you go.
You know, that's almost as good as giving fire to the mortals.
Yeah, thanks, Athena. Anything else? Wow, it's like digging into your stocking at the holidays and Christmas and being like, what? This is it?
And you hit
That's
the bottom and it's like loose M&Ms.
Yeah, you're like, you ate all the rest. You just poured the rest of the bag. This is a charade.
Well, Casey, as you alluded, today we are talking about a very versatile, delicious little guy.
Yes, we are. And Alex, before we get into that, sorry, skipped over everything.
That's okay.
How are you?
Okay.
That's good. I like your hat.
Thanks. I got a little black beanie on.
I think beanies are my favorite style of hat. I've grown my hair out though, and thus it doesn't work as well.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
you're more of the. Actually, what's funny is that you showed up here this week to record.
Yep.
And I said, "Oh my God, you got a haircut."
Yes, that's true.
Because right now your hair is like, I don't know, like 10 inches long.
Yeah, it goes down. It touches my shoulders.
Yeah.
It tickles the tops of my of my torso.
Right. I don't know why that was so gross. But nay, you hadn't gotten a haircut. You were hiding it with a hat.
Correct. I put it all in a bun and stuck the bun out the back end of the hat where you put it together.
Your transformation is complete.
Exactly. I am now a bun guy.
Yeah. You're mega Casey.
You said actually I grew my hair out one time, and you said, Casey, I think I actually had it in a bun at the time, and you said, "Wow, you've reached your final form."
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did. It was the best compliment I've ever had. Because I don't know. Maybe it's just I looked. I don't know. It felt good.
Well, Casey, how are you doing? Are you feeling good today?
I am. I'm feeling very good. I got I ordered a mattress for this big trip that's coming up.
Oh yeah.
And it would go in the back of the truck, and got it. I believe it's finally been delivered today. I ordered it on the 23rd of September.
Right, a proper odyssey getting this mattress.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
I ordered several other things after that, and they all arrived late, but still before this mattress. Ah! Anyway, other than that, I'm feeling really good. So
Wonderful.
It's not a rainy day. Got a bunch of things going on. Feeling nice. Let's see what else. What else is going on? I want to play the drums. I have not played the drums in months.
Wow.
And I've been itching for it. No, I don't, because I have it's in the room that I do business things in. Including backpacking business things.
Yeah.
So I have stuff in the way. So I just need to clear it out, set it up, just bang on them for a while, and then just put them away and be like,
tear them all down.
This feels good. Yeah, because I can't, maybe if I do it correctly, I can sit on the drum throne and then play some cool beat, twist around, send some stickers to our lovely patrons who have bought us a bunch of stickers, twist back around, drum a little bit more, then twist back around one more time, and then look up, what's this tree? Where's that ground? How's that work?
That sounds like a great multitasking event.
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to a Frisbee tournament this weekend. It's going to be really great. I haven't played in another couple weeks. I don't know. It just feels like there's this big lull and everything, and now things are ramping up in a nice way.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so everything feels good.
Good for you.
Yeah. Timbers are playing. What can go wrong? Well, I shouldn't say that right now. The Timbers aren't doing very well.
Life has blessed you with joy, my friend.
I appreciate you being a part of this joy, Alex.
Pleasure. And Casey, it's also a joy to talk about this week's tree, the olive.
Yes, it is. Olea, europaea.
Now say that in a normal Casey accent.
Oh, sorry.
Because I'm curious how you say the second word.
Olea, europaea.
Europaea. Okay.
That's what I would say.
Yes,
and
me
it's,
too.
Yeah, it's pronounced, or it's spelled EUROPAEA.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, like so classically Latin, isn't it? With like the AEA or the AE that are like mashed together. So it looks like one thing.
They like share a line. So today we're talking about the olive, the Olea europaea.
That's right.
Casey, let's imagine, as we do every gosh darn episode, that you and I are walking through an olive orchard, potentially in the south of France.
Yes.
Or, Italy or Greece.
Yeah, or Turkey, almost anywhere. Northern, or like Tunisia, surely.
Okay. And we come across some olive trees because, again, just like the almond, we are in an orchard.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's easy to come across olive trees in an olive orchard. And I will ask you, Casey, please, let's talk about this tree.
You got it. An olive tree. It's a gorgeous little tree. This, I think, will cap off our trilogy of, broadly speaking, European, or rather Mediterranean trees, which, of course, have spread up through Europe and spread over to the south and to the east of the basin of the Mediterranean.
What were the first two?
The pomegranate.
Oh, yes.
As well as the one we just did last week, hazelnut.
That's right. My gosh.
So this, at least we did, of course, the European hazel from Avella, the wild nut. So all of these are small trees that were initially grown and started to be cultivated down in this Mediterranean region. And so it's interesting, we're always consciously kind of aware of like a Euro bias towards things.
Yeah.
And so as soon as we did this tree, it's like, another tree from this same area. And I didn't even think about it when we were choosing these trees. Because the hazelnut, we grow it in Oregon all the time. So my thought is hazelnut, Oregon. And I was like, oh shoot, it's not the native one. So this kind of trilogy is really indicative of a lot of these cultures in Mesopotamia where it was grown and cultivated throughout this entire region. From Israel over to India and in Afghanistan, northern Africa, all the way up through, like you said, southern France in that area.
I see.
And if you were walking through these regions at any point in the last approximately 8,000 or 10,000 years, you would probably find a couple of these trees growing near a small village.
Great.
And these are trees that are kind of short, shrubby-ish trees.
Yeah.
However, I will argue that this one, in fact, will come out on the tree side of our spectrum of what exactly does that mean.
100%. Of all the photos I'm seeing, there's no way anybody could call this a shrub.
Yeah, and it doesn't grow in a shrubby way that they just have kind of stamped down and forced it to become, a tree. They haven't suppressed its shrub-like qualities.
Yeah.
It just has this one single stem that comes up. Specifically, this is actually in the Oleaceae family, which has oppositely arranged leaves and buds, which includes the ash trees, Forsythia, also includes the jasmine flowers or jasmine plants. And then, of course, one of my favorites, it's the Chiananthus, the fringe tree, which also has these really beautiful, beautiful flowers that come out, and these are all in that family, which is another one of those families that are all oppositely arranged, which is important because that makes them really easy to identify.
Well, Casey, let's describe these leaves. They're kind of average looking.
You know what? Yeah, that's fine for you to say it. I think you're not wrong.
Except for one characteristic.
Ooh, what is that?
The color.
The color, yes.
I adore the color of this olive tree foliage.
Right?
It is like a pale kind of gray-green.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is.
Very pastel. It's gorgeous.
I see it as like a grayer version of a seafoam green.
Yeah.
Where less green, more gray.
Yes, it's very seafoamy.
Yeah, and as you see it, like it looks almost like a ghost of a tree,
Yeah, it does.
So it's really dainty. They have, these oppositely arranged lanceolate skinny leaves, about 2 to 4 inches long, and the leaves, like you said, are gray, kind of dappled white with a little bit of like olive. Honestly, there's a color olive. It's because they have such a unique color, right?
They're totally olive color.
Yeah, they're exactly. Man, these trees really are olive colors.
They're very on brand, these trees.
They really are. They've defined a lot of our like cultural sort of things, how we view things. Oh, it tastes like an olive. Oh, it looks like an olive. Olive is a kind of type.
Right.
Yeah. So they have that. Of course, as they grow, you get the morphology of the tree, again, as a tree, grows to be no more than maybe 40 feet tall. Apparently, there's a specific variety that grows in, I think, southern Italy that grows way higher than that and gets really big, thick trunks. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, They're really kind of short trees, 30, 40 feet tall, a little bit about the same roundness, but they kind of look messy. What's his name from the Return of the Future, Back to the Future? Doc Brown. Yes, his hair?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Albert Einstein?
Yes.
The tree, in my opinion, as it grows up, it starts to look like their hair.
For sure.
Just like a wild scientist that has gone gray, but not like horribly gray, just a little bit gray.
Like bigger on one side than on the other side.
Yeah, and has
kind of
like
unkempt.
Very unkempt. That's exactly the right word. With like sprays that kind of come out at weird angles and then like are sort of emergent shoots from the rest of the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look wild. They really do.
It just kind of grows how it wants to grow, it looks like.
It doesn't follow any kind of pattern. It doesn't need your approval,
right.
And it shirks any identity of what it means to look like an olive. It defines it, as we noted.
And Casey, the thing maybe beyond the fruit that I am most excited to talk about is the bark, but more specifically the stem of the olive tree.
It is so gnarly, isn't it?
It's incredible.
There's no way to look at it. Everyone, pull out your phones right now. Thank you. We'll wait. And Google the bark or the stem of an olive. And then just go to Google Images, of course. I'm sorry. If you're binging this right now, shame on you.
Oh, Bing, eh?
Jeez.
Yeah, to me, it looks a bit like a sort of version 1.0 of like a bristlecone pine.
Yeah, totally. But all these trees do it. Like they tend to like grow and put out these weird kind of growths for no good reason, and they get really kind of wavy and like for whatever reason, maybe this side gets a little bit more wood than something in the middle, so you get these kind of fake seams and like columns that come out. Give it 1,000 years, because these trees can live for several thousand years, especially if they're taken care of. Then all of a sudden you get like these monstrously bulbous looking like elephantine, like not even elephantine. I don't know. It looks like something that's like a foot, because the base kind of gets really bulbous and kind of jumps out. And it's very sinuous to me. I just see it as a
sinuous is a good word for it. I've said before, like a bag of snakes. Like some of these trees' trunks look like a bag of snakes, where it's just like a bunch of bands. It's very banded.
Yes, there you go. That's a great description.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like that. They're gray. It's in otherwise a utility bark kind of tree. But when it's younger, it gets like these kind of strappiness to it, where it looks almost like it's very not thread-like, but like really thick threads, kind of strappy, kind of interweaving around the base.
It's gorgeous.
It looks like you could just grab them and pull them off. And some of them can kind of be a little bit shaggy, but for the most part, you can't actually pull anything off or anything like that. They just kind of are.
Right.
It looks like you could, but you can't.
Should we talk fruit?
Oh, we sure can. Who's unfamiliar with the olive? Raise your hand.
Wow,
I see that many people.
I was going to say, I see that nobody.
Yeah.
Although, if you've never had, I feel. Here's a take.
Yeah, go for it.
This is not a hot take.
It's a medium take.
It's just an observation.
Yeah. Here's a good one.
Olives is one of those extremely divisive foods.
Oh.
I feel that I either meet people who hate olives, or who love olives.
Interesting.
And I think it's a brine thing.
Yeah, like because you would put them in and like brine them or pickle them to an extent.
And I know that you, Casey, are very anti-pickle.
I am anti-pickle.
In the traditional sense of a cucumber pickle.
Yes.
And you don't like pickled things, period.
Generally speaking, that's correct.
Do you like? And you also don't like mustard.
I don't like
mustard, which is made with vinegar.
That is also true.
Do you like olives?
I was not expecting to be put quite on the hot seat here.
We're all friends here.
All right.
You don't like olives.
I don't like olives.
Wow.
I love olive oil, though. Does that help?
No, that's completely different.
Damn.
That's in line with what I know about you, and I'm not surprised, and I'm not disappointed.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad that there's a nice running line, so it's not like I just pick and choose things I don't like for some silly reason.
Like me.
Yeah, exactly. I chose to like you for completely arbitrary reasons. See what I did there?
Yeah.
Product placement.
It's the name
baby.
of the show.
I think that they are just not that good. They're very salty. They have this weird olivey flavor that is not like...
Heaven forbid an olive has an olivey flavor.
I love olive oil. Like sometimes I just make noodles and just put pepper and olive oil and some like shredded cheese on top, and I just eat
delicious,
that.
Yeah.
It's so good. But the rest of it, like the actual little body of the little drupe, it's a drupe.
It's a drupe. All right.
There's a little hard pit in the middle, which is the center seed, and then you have that fleshy outer coating. It's not that good. Just not that good.
Okay, well, let's talk about the droopiness.
All right.
What is an olive?
Oh, right. It's a spherical to ovoid, green, then ripening to purplish black little fruit. And it's a drupe, of course. And so it comes from these little flowers that come out in little racemes that pop out from the axils of the twigs and the flowers as they pop out.
Okay.
So all that means is that if you see a leaf, a little flower will come out from the base of where that leaf is attached, and then it'll have a little olive connected to it.
Can I say... They're cute little flowers.
Aren't they cute?
I like them a
so
lot.
too. Yeah, they're like fringed, and they have apparently I think they have 10 sepals on them.
Yeah, I see 4 petals here.
Yeah. So it's a very specific kind of tree in that regard. The fringe tree, the Chiananthus, also has those really nice fringed flowers like that.
I also noticed the stamen.
Yeah.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah, probably.
They look like little sugar puffs. Like sugar puff cereal.
Oh my gosh, they kind of do.
You know what I mean?
I think so. Yeah, like the little orange bits that are just kind of going. Bleh.
Like little puffed rice balls.
Yeah, they kind of do. Yeah.
It's an adorable flower.
I would bet you maybe stamens would actually be the style. That's probably
the style.
Yeah, that's probably the female part that takes the pollen in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, most likely.
Well, there you have it.
Well, as it works out, that's the extent of it. Like they come out really bright green, and then as they age and they mature, they turn to exactly like a half black, which is actually really interesting. They have a term for this, Alex. Are you familiar with the term for the half ripened, half not ripened olive?
I don't think I do know that. What is it?
It is veraison or veraison. 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 Let's go veraison.
Veraison.
Oui.
Oh, these olives are veraison.
Oui, très bien.
Okay.
Man, we're good at French.
And that just means that they're half ripened?
Yes, it actually means specifically the onset of ripening. And it's the same thing or same word that they would use for grapes as they begin to ripen. So you have like green. Then all of a sudden, as they just start to turn like shades of purple, they say, oh, it is veraison, which is the onset of ripening.
Now I'm thinking of another drupe.
Yeah.
An avocado. Is that a drupe?
Yes.
Yes. That it does the same thing.
I think so.
It is bright green and then it has, you start to see a little bit of a darker color. Like,
there you go.
And then a ripe avocado is like half black.
Yeah, and then it turns full black and it's delicious.
And then it's mushy.
Which is just the same, actually, funny enough, as the olive. And did you know, Alex, as they are turning this color, when they're green, it's from the same family of cells, molecules that is chlorophyll. So it has that same greenness to it. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So inside those cells, they're probably making their own energy inside of that fruit while it's green.
Wow.
They're not quite as intense and like dedicated as you'd see in the leaves, which I should add are evergreen. This is traditionally an evergreen plant. It'll be this green, we say with quotes because it's kind of this grayish olive color.
Yeah.
Is that defining something by defining it? Like, oh, that's the round is something that is round.
A little bit, but I think it works in this context.
We're going to say chartreuse. A very mauve-like chartreuse.
A mauve-like chartreuse.
Yeah, now if that's not something that's going to be exciting.
A little less clear.
Well, so it turns green when it first pops out, or it is green. And then as it ripens, it starts to actually put in it breaks down the chlorophyll, and then it starts producing a new pigment that's called an anthocyanin.
Wow. One more time.
Anthocyanin.
Anthocyanin.
Yes.
Is a chlorophyll-like pigment, or it is at least a pigment like chlorophyll.
Yeah, it's a pigment. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so it's another pigment that comes out, and it's present in a bunch of other plants and vegetables. And it effectively, because it's that darker color, remember green as a pigment, it absorbs all of the other wavelengths of light and reflects green, which is why that's what we see in our eyes. As opposed, anthocyanin, this one specifically, and many of them actually will absorb all colors of light. So that's why they appear this dark purple black, because they are absorbing all of the light.
I see.
So as they absorb that light, they actually are acting as a sunscreen that is protecting the fruit from getting chemically damaged by the sun.
You're kidding.
But at the same time, because it's black, it actually warms up with the heat. So it protects it as sunscreen, absorbs heat energy, and then helps the fruit to ripen even faster.
Because it's ripened by sun, by heat?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's insane.
Isn't that wild?
That's so cool.
Yeah, so that is the act of them ripening. It does that, but then also at the same time, it makes it all of a sudden pop.
Yeah.
Which, if you are this small little drupe that you want to be eaten so that you can then have that seed go be dropped somewhere else by some bird, if you are this perfect green color that matches in with everything else, you don't really stand out.
No.
But if you turn this really dark, bright, contrasting color, all of a sudden you pop out like no one's business, and then everything's going to come and try and get you.
Right.
For obviously a good reason. Then on top of that, of course, we have the oil that's inside the thing.
Yes.
All that oil starts to get produced because it has certain chemicals, which as certain chemicals are broken down and redone as this ripening process happens, those chemicals then turn into oils. Those oils then start to fill up everything, and then that gives you a really nice, nutritious thing to eat.
And Casey, speaking of oils in olives, we have plenty more to say about that after the break. We'll be right back with more Completely Arbortrary. Welcome back to Completely Arbortrary. Today we're talking the olive, Olea, europaea. Casey, before the break, we teased that we are going to talk about the delicious oil that comes from these plants.
That is right.
More specifically, the fruits, the olive, the drupe.
Yes.
Let's talk oil, Casey.
Well, this delicious drupe creates an oil that is just so ubiquitous in cultures around the Mediterranean, Europe, the United States, you name it.
Yeah.
Olive oil is probably a part of it.
Olive oil, most definitely the most widely used cooking oil.
Yeah, I think so, and that is for good reason. It imparts a delicious flavor on things that you're doing. It's very good for you. Like there are some people that are do they call them the centurions or the people who live past 100 years?
Oh, sure.
There's a village in Italy where there's just a ridiculously increased, like a larger amount of these people, and I don't know why this was like in front of my face, but one time I was watching it and this one lady was like, yeah, I drink like a shot of olive oil every morning and like bathe in it. Like she just, olive oil was her everything. Alpha and omega.
Italy and Greece, I think, have the, and don't fact check me on this, please, I'm begging you, have the highest lifespan.
Yeah.
Average lifespan and olive oil I mean, their diet in general for sure probably takes a huge
It probably
role
goes
in that.
for it, yeah. Well, so this, because it was such like, it was this, like everyone was like, this is delicious. A, we can eat it. B, we can use the oil and make it so as not only a food, but a cash crop. We can sell it to other people.
Yeah.
It's just the perfect thing to make. So you're familiar, as we've talked about these orchard-like trees for, thousands and thousands of years, people have been growing them in an orchard-like fashion, or at least in an agricultural-like fashion. So an orchard, of course, is just a plantation of trees, but those trees generally, almost exclusively, will be producing some food. So you don't have like an orchard of Douglas firs that create wood. Orchard is usually a food crop of trees that are everywhere.
Something that you can use to make like like hemp orchards or something that you can use to make fiber, right?
Well, generally, but we wouldn't generally call those orchards.
Oh, because they're not trees.
Yes, and if they were trees, then we would cut them down and it would just be a plantation.
I see.
So we wouldn't usually use the term orchard for a tree that we're actively cultivating in order to get the product of that tree. The tree itself is not the product.
I understand.
Yeah. So, of course, way back in the day, we didn't have massive, and when I say way back in the day, I mean when the first evidence of the cultivation of olives was like 8,000 years ago.
Wow.
So people are like, we've been doing it for a long time, but way back then it would be like a small village. That small village found this olive tree, so they collected the olives, they ate the fruit, threw the pits out, those pits grew, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, cool, we got another olive tree right here, growing right next to their house, or they realize, wow, these are seeds, because we understand what agriculture is and how to grow things. they start planting these trees, but they do it in a subsistence kind of way, right?
What does that mean?
That means you're growing things to eat, to live on, where you're like a subsistence farmer. You're not growing things for cash crops. You're growing them because you are eating all of that stuff.
I see.
Or maybe you're selling a small amount of it and then eating the majority.
Okay.
So if you are doing this as a subsistence village, then you guys aren't really importing things to eat necessarily. You might be trading, but you would be getting all of your fish from the Mediterranean with your little boats. You would have small amounts of grains and roots and things like that you're growing in your crops around. You would go out and forage for different wild things that are growing in the, in your region. And then as this develops, you'd start to say, well, okay, I'm going to eat this almond and this hazelnut and this other thing. You toss out and you realize you can plant these seeds as well. And these trees start growing around your house, around your property. And then all of a sudden you say, okay, cool. That area over there, I'm going to plant a bunch of trees. So you'd have all of these different specific varieties of trees, right, that are growing food for you specifically.
Okay.
Trees are great for food if you like the food and they make good stuff. It's usually a bunch of food. So like one olive tree can produce a ridiculous amount of olives.
Yeah.
One walnut tree, a ridiculous amount of walnuts. So in terms of the amount of food you get for the amount of effort you put in, you just let the tree grow, and you're going to get a bunch of food from it. You also get really high quality nuts and seeds, things that have high value in terms of nutrition. So the olive oil is like this quintessentially perfect thing because you had all the fats and all the proteins inside the olive flesh. That really was a boon for your existence if you are just living on what you're growing.
Yeah.
And then you'd have all these other nut trees and fruit trees growing around, so you have this really cool kind of little small orchard, right? And this is the same. You go to East Asia, you go to anywhere where we kind of learned how to grow these things. Nutmeg's a great example. And the mango and the avocado, anywhere you go, there's been people who have been realizing this tree's great. I can actually just plant this seed. It will grow. And now you've created a little tiny orchard of multiple little trees.
And Casey, I was curious as you were talking.
Yeah.
The etymology of the word orchard.
Ooh.
Because it's an interesting word to me for some reason. I don't know why.
What is it? I never even thought about it. Glossed over it like a dummy.
Here we go. Old English, right? So there's a bunch of little family trees here.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna cut to the chase and say it comes from Wortgard. Wort meaning vegetable or plant root in Old English.
Yep.
And gard meaning yard.
Yeah. So it was plant in your yard, or like a yard plant,
like a garden, basically.
Yeah,
it's a big garden.
Yeah, which it would be probably in contrast to wild foraging,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so that makes it very much a human-related thing, not just a tree. You go into the woods, you collect, chestnuts, and then you come back.
Yes.
Anyway, so that's kind of how this all first started. Very grassroots, if you want to give it that term, where everyone's just like, okay, cool. This is almost by accident. I learned that I can grow an olive right next to my house.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty casual process.
Yeah, and then as that sort of, this little tiny small village starts to get a little bit bigger, and starts to develop more like the standard European and Middle Eastern commerce that has become quite common and has spread across the entire world in terms of culture at this point. All of a sudden, you realize, well, okay, how about I just plant 30 of these trees, and I start selling them to other villages and trading them around.
The trees or the olives?
The olives.
Okay.
Sorry, you plant them, they grow, you start collecting those olives, and then you now trade those because you got the best land to do that.
Sure.
And then you sell those over to somebody else, or you sell them to these other traders that come by, and they're like, wow, we've never had this before. What is this, olive oil? How did you make that? And then all of a sudden, you start developing it as a cash crop, and then it becomes this thing that becomes ubiquitous in your diet because you learn to make oil from it. And then all of a sudden, you realize that it goes from a small little, family-run thing in your backyard to all of a sudden you have a vast estate with 100, 200 trees growing on it. That's way more olives than you could ever eat. It's way more olives than you need to make X amount of olive oil.
Yeah.
And you start trading it more as a commodity. Once that happens, and I usually say, you add a dash of capitalism to something and it completely ruins it.
Yes.
That didn't quite happen this way because they were already growing in huge orchards, but in like the sort of sustainable way in terms of like small villages and like, Roman times.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, there were orchards all over the place, but they were fairly small. And you would get together everyone during the harvest day, which is still to this day, some people use like specific measurements, like a spectrometer to figure it out. But some people I don't know, my grandma goes out and tries it, and then when it's done, that's when she comes back and says it's time.
Oh,
that's
sure.
when we go harvest the things. Right?
I wonder if that information is in the Farmer's Almanac.
Oh, I bet you it is. There probably is. I've always tried to access it, but there's a paywall, and I just can't bring myself to buy it.
My mother had whatever you need to get a Farmer's Almanac every year because she grew up on a farm.
Yeah, see, that's what you got to get. I guess you have to have that that background, and they're like, "You're one of us."
Yeah.
Here you are. Well, I bet you're right. As it happens, though, we either do it that traditional way or not. However, what I'm getting at is that over time, it essentially gets bigger and bigger until you can't have just a village do it. You have to hire migrant workers to come in and help you out, or laborers of any kind.
Yeah.
But then also the technology develops. So at one point you plant as many as you can, as close together to take up as much land, be as efficient as possible with your space without crowding the trees out. You want to give them enough room to grow wide, but then you can kind of walk between them and pick the stuff, right?
Yeah.
Over time, though, as you want to get up and up, you have to, in order to get the fruit at the exact right moment, you have to harvest it when it's ripe. Does that make sense?
In order to get the fruit
at
the right moment, you have to harvest it when it's ripe.
Yeah, so it's a little circular there.
Yeah, no.
In order to, so if you, as a fruit is going through its ripening process, there's a point when it is perfect.
Yes.
For whatever you're making.
Yes.
If you do it a little bit early, it's going to be kind of the more robust, spicy, a little bit more bitter olive oil. And then as it goes further towards ripening, those bitter compounds kind of reduce and you get a little bit more oil, but you get an oil that's a little bit more mellow and it's a little bit more flowery.
Oh, interesting.
So the change in sort of the flavor profile is different as you go through the time. And also that's if you're making olive oil.
A more ripe olive reduces in maybe a less flavorful oil?
Potentially, it's just a different flavor.
Okay, more mellow flavor?
Yeah, it's not quite as bitter and spicy. It's a little bit more mellow kind of idea.
I guess that makes sense. That the younger olives would have more kind of intense bitter flavors.
Yeah, and mostly it's because they don't want to be eaten right there. They want to make sure the seed is fully mature. And that's what this really is a proxy of. The outside of the fruit is mature to be eaten when the seed is mature to be planted.
Interesting.
So that's kind of that thing. That's why it tastes so bad for eating things that are unripe.
Doesn't want to be eaten.
Doesn't want to be eaten. Precisely.
Yet.
Yeah. It's like hold on.
Yeah.
So the big thing is if you have let's say at this rate, fast forward to today, we have say million tree orchards, which at this point are just these factory farms for olive trees in Argentina and Australia, the United States. You have it all over Europe, all over the Middle East, and going wherever there's that Mediterranean-ish climate, right?
Yeah.
So once you're at that level, if you want to harvest your million trees when they're all just at that right moment, you have to harvest 1 million trees in a day. It's impossible. You just can't do it.
Yeah.
So they started changing over, this is over hundreds of years, they started changing what the orchard looks like based on the technology at hand as to how you can do this. And this has been the same for almost every orchard there ever existed.
Can I take a guess?
Yeah.
Do you just plant the trees, you stagger them by a week so they all develop in kind of a gradient?
Oh, I wish it was that simple. Once they're planted, they all do it at the same time.
Oh.
So they all put on the same fruit at the same time.
What a stupid thing to say.
No, I love that.
It's a child's remark. I'm sorry.
Which honestly, no, your childlike vision of the world is so endearing, Alex.
That is so insulting.
I know it was going to be. Sorry, I couldn't resist. So not quite that simple. What they do is they spread them out, put them in straight lines, and make it so that as they develop these new things, maybe it's just you have to get to the outside of the tree, so it has to be wider, a little bit wider. You take this big rake. They used to just take sticks. You just hit the stick on the branch and everything falls down.
If it works.
Yeah, if it works. They've also had these little like combs essentially where they just like comb down the branch and it pulls off the branch and the leaves go through, but then the bigger fruit hits the comb and gets popped off.
Sure, that's a 2.0 idea.
Exactly. Now 3.0, now we've hit the Industrial Revolution.
Oh, is this the shakers?
This is the shakers. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I've seen this not for olives, but like for nut trees.
Yeah.
Or I guess you could do it with anything.
Oh, everyone should go look that up. They're hilarious.
It is a small tractor with a big clamp on the front.
Yeah.
You drive up to the tree.
And the clamp is padded so it doesn't hurt the tree.
Oh, good. Yes, it's like a wrench.
Yeah.
So you drive the wrench into the tree, and then you close the wrench so it's holding the trunk. Then you shake it all about.
And then it's just like I imagine I think was it 1960s when like it was like women who are stay-at-home moms do this, and they had those like bands that they would sit would stand around, it would just like jiggle them.
Yes, it is that exactly.
It's exactly that kind of thing.
Yes.
And I still don't understand if that actually works. I don't know.
For the
exercise
1960s
thing,
I think absolutely not.
Probably not.
What would that? I don't even know what that would even be doing.
Just make you throw up, probably.
Increase blood flow to your stomach.
Yeah. So whatever. But yes, it's kind of like that, except maybe not strapped. So if you have the chance, everyone out there, go Google that real fast.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
What? We'll put a little video of it on our post for this episode.
Perfect. So they have that, and essentially they were like, yeah, it works. And then one of these things I was reading is saying, also they have like these tents that kind of come around. They have these like boom arms that take a big tarp and they go completely around the bottom of the tree, shake it, and then all the things fall into that tarp and then funnel down into a thing, and they have them all collected in a bucket as well.
It's pretty good.
Now, that's 3.0 if I've ever heard about it.
That's pretty good.
The thing, though, is this guy that I was reading, we'll post this article on, or an access to this book. It's such an easy, it's like a bullet point question, and then this guy just answers it in a really effective way. It's an old scientific book or something. But he was like, yeah, it works really well until the trees are big enough that when you put the shaker on, the tree doesn't move and the shaker machine moves. He's like, that's when it becomes not that useful.
Yeah. So what, you just have to do it the old-fashioned way?
Oh, no. You then design your entire orchard to get to trees that are this big, and they have this thing called the Colossus, and it is like a 28-ton machine that drives over the top of these trees.
Oh, yeah.
And it has like wheels that are spaced apart, so it goes perfectly down these aisles. Big machine comes over the top and then sits over the top of the tree and has like these, if you're going into a sports game or like you go anywhere and you would go through a gate, and the gate has these like forks coming out. You can push it one way and you can go in, and then it like goes through, but you can't go the opposite way. And there's like those gates, the forks that are, I guess they're more tines. They like stick straight out, so it like almost looks like these combs going through each other.
Yes,
that is essentially what it looks like. Somehow it doesn't destroy the tree. It just goes over the top of the tree. All these little things come out, clear the whole tree worth of the olives, puts it into a machine that's then put into a big collector truck that's driving behind it.
I'll say this. The Colossus is the death of the charm of olive production.
100%.
That just sounds disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, that is so gross and gaudy and dumb.
These were harvested by the Colossus.
That is so dumb.
You must pray to it before you eat it.
I mean, that's kind of late stage,
right?
Capitalist olive harvesting.
Totally is. Yeah, it mechanizes the whole thing. You don't have people out there collecting it with their hands, which some people say, well, yeah, great, less disease or something like that. So it's got these, these sides to it. But you're right. Sure. It's certainly watching these gigantic machines go over these, revered trees that have been cultivated and loved. One book that I was reading, literally, as we started this, said that sometimes trees are so revered that families will designate them to their descendants, the tree itself.
Wow.
Not necessarily the land, just the tree.
Sure.
And then they'll actually give it to individuals, multiple people, but like certain parts of the tree. This branch is for you, Alex. I love you.
Wow.
You're my favorite.
No kidding.
This branch is for you, Sarah. I love you. You're my second favorite. This branch is for you, Scott. You suck. And it's like a little dead twig or something.
Is that real?
Yeah, apparently.
That is next level.
I love it.
Yeah.
So these trees, not only that, they live for thousands of years. They get really big, and they have these old orchards that have been in production for thousands of years on these like old estates in Italy and Greece and places like that, like you were saying. And then you have these newfangled ones that are designed for these Colossus machines in California that are just, crushing through and getting a million gazillion things at once.
Yeah.
So then it takes like 40 days to do 100 trees a day. That's now your million trees on your million acres.
Wow.
So that mechanization kind of sucks. It takes all the love away from it. But that's it. That's where you're at with like this progression of orchards. And this happens with a bunch of different things. Apple orchards are really similar. I mean, people will go out and pick these individual apples, but they also you tend to find that essentially the bigger and the more industrial your scale, the more things you have to put into it to either make it work or to make it not fail. So the big thing that is now happening with olives is that in Italy, they are getting a invasive disease called Xylella fastidiosa.
Wow.
And that is actually, we're not sure where it's from. I don't believe anyone's quite sure. It might be from the United States. It's here in Oregon. We've had this, and it gets on all sorts of different plants. Notably, people have recently found it in the big leaf maple, I think in the last 5 years or so. However, it will get attacked and spread by little leafhopper or leaf-sucking insects. So as soon as that insect bites a plant that has it, the bacteria goes into it. Then it goes over to another plant, bites that plant, and the bacteria goes into the plant.
Like an aphid?
Exactly,
okay.
Yeah. So it ends up doing that, and it gets taken over to these different plants via this individual little insect or whole colonies of this insect. Then it has gone over there, I think in 2010s when they initially found it in Italy, and like these ancient trees are now dying. Like 2,000-year-old trees that have been the center of somewhere for that long.
I mean, so sad.
It's so sad. And it's like the cultural importance of that tree to your family. It is your family. Essentially, this branch represents, how this was given down by your great-great-grandparents to each of your branches of your family. How metaphorical can you get?
It's your family tree.
Literally, it's your family tree. So, unfortunately, though, the insect and the disease, they don't care about your family tree. It's the natural progression of life. They're going to go about it. So, you get these vast deaths of huge acres of trees. And why is this, Alex? It's because it's a monoculture.
Right.
And that's the big thing that we have covered in the American elm episode, for example. You plant nothing but American elms, one disease comes through, and you've now decimated your entire population of whatever that was.
That's right. Isn't almonds sort of the same way with the colony collapse and the bees?
Yeah, exactly. If you kill this other species that's integral to your thing, then all of a sudden, or it gets a disease for whatever reason, then now you are hobbling your ability to produce almonds.
Yeah, I guess it's slightly different.
Yeah,
it's
that's
from a different perspective.
Yeah, that's like
side.
second degree, but still, you're putting all your eggs in one basket, and then all of your eggs to make those eggs are in another single basket. If you lose one of those egg baskets, then you're screwed entirely.
Yeah, you need to back up your media.
You got to do it. Yeah, you got to diversify. And that is where we're leading next in this little story, is that as people were really freaking out, ironically, we're in a pandemic, and especially in the United States, but all over the world, there's been politics about, well, it's not real. I don't believe it like this. No, I'm not going to listen to this.
Yeah.
And there's been this back and forth, disbelief almost. Well, it turns out that was happening exactly the same in Italy when this first came out.
With the olive virus?
Yeah, because it got in one tree or some trees. And so the agronomists were like, we need to stop this containment and just kill all the trees that have it right now.
Yeah.
Because if we get rid of all those trees and all the insects that were on them, then good, we're done. So if there was a tree that was infected, they would go over and say, we need to kill this tree immediately, even if that's 1,000-year-old tree. So naturally, people were really upset, and they didn't believe it. And they said, this is a conspiracy. This tree's not actually dying. Monsanto brought this in because they want to kill all these trees and then plant new trees that are, a genetically modified tree. So, that's not an unreasonable thing to be afraid of. Monsanto Monsanto's done that with a huge amount of our food industry.
Yes, I have no problem thinking that a monster is going to be a monster.
Yeah, but in this time, it's the government and like these honest and hardworking scientists saying, no, this is a problem. This is the best way at this moment. When the problem's really small, stamp it out, nip it in the bud. So unfortunately, they didn't listen to it, and people were like chaining themselves to trees. Those trees died, and then they killed other trees. And so it's kind of one of those things where it's like you're just not paying attention to the science, listening to these conspiracy theories, and literally in the article that we'll have it posted on our website, they literally call out the exact parallels with COVID-19. So moving forward, in this article, they specifically call out these people who said, look at this one branch that my grandfather grafted on, from a different variety of of the same tree, olive, Olea europaea, grafted it onto this tree, and they say this one's still alive. So this one variety of this tree is still resistant to Xylella fastidiosa. All the rest of the tree is essentially dead. All the other trees around it are essentially dead.
And this is one variation?
This is one variation, one cultivar that is grafted onto the side of one individual tree.
Wow.
That was keeping the whole tree alive.
Wow.
The rest of the tree had like completely kicked the bucket. All those leaves and twigs had died because essentially you get the same as for the Xylella. What it does is it goes down and clogs all of the vascular system of the tree as it like grows and eats carbohydrates. So essentially, they die from cholesterol poisoning, where they just literally their veins get blocked,
Plaque
so they
buildup.
can't do it precisely.
That sucks.
So in this case, with the new variety that they found, or they noticed this variety was okay, they're like, oh, sweet, okay, maybe we just need to start planting this variety. Mm-hmm. But then, if you start planting that variety everywhere, you're just kicking the can down the road when something now can affect that variety, and you have 100% that variety everywhere.
Right.
You have the same problem.
Yeah.
So in this case, they basically say, yeah, this is a good solution. This might be solving the problem. We might be able to do this. But what is the answer? It's diversity.
Yes.
And this is one of the biggest problems with any orchard anywhere, is you're planting almost the same exact thing for acres and acres and acres. So over here we have apples and pears in Hood River, and all over California there's all these trees, exactly the same trees. And we go through and we have to spray them constantly with whatever chemicals are in vogue at the moment for whatever reason, so that it can keep all of the pests down. When you do that, you're just killing almost every insect there is, including the beneficial insects, and you have this inert kind of area.
Yeah.
So that causes all sorts of other problems down the line, because you can get super bugs. One bug becomes really good at defending itself and it can survive. It procreates. Now all of its children can survive. And then you have that arms race of trying to, get a new drug that can kill the thing. And now you have a new thing that's resistant to that drug.
Right.
Same idea. So in this case, it goes back to what we were talking about with the apple. I think you asked me, who cares about finding wild apples? Or who cares about finding these other wild species? Or like, where exactly is the very first native species of this tree from?
That sounds like a Casey talking point.
Oh, no, you asked the question. You said, why is this even important? No, you get credit, Alex. I'm not going to let you push this out on me. Sorry. Alex, you had a great idea and you're just so disappointed.
Oh, I didn't know it was good. I thought it was a bad idea.
No. I believe you asked
to say who cares about this thing.
Yeah, why should we go try and find where the very first apple is, or where there's that native population?
Okay.
And I said, well, it has a bunch of genes in it that we don't know about.
Oh, sure, yes.
It's a gene base. So it's the same thing with olives. There is a natural native olive from this region. You can probably find not very many. There's a couple other varieties. However, Alex, if we can continually find these other genes and keep crossing them, and keep crossing different kinds of different olives with old varieties that have not been put into cultivation for many, many years and decades, centuries, then we might be able to maintain this genetic base, this pool to choose from, and keep finding resistant varieties that have these other attributes that we want. High oil value, great color, great tastiness, allegedly, and all these other things. So that is kind of where the story ends in terms of orchards. It becomes too big and it does fail. It's definitely not too big to fail.
Yeah.
Where you're putting all your eggs in one basket and then you have to constantly kill anything that comes near it, because if one thing gets in there, it ruins your entire country's biggest crop and your cultural heritage.
And I think I've said this before about another monocrop, or is that what's called, monocrop?
Yeah.
Diversity. It's a beautiful metaphor. Like, diversity makes us stronger.
Exactly. It creates resistance and resilience most of the time.
That's right.
Which makes you want to go back to those subsistence farmers where they said, well, we have some olives, but we also have all these other things.
Yeah.
Or we just planted the olive that grew from this seed that we ate.
Well, Casey, I think that's a great point to get into our review of the olive, the Olea europaea.
That's what I think.
Here's how it works. We're going to give our final thoughts on this tree and then give it a rating of 0 to 10 golden poems of honor for our season 4 plant-based diet.
Yep.
Casey, as our resident expert, will begin with you.
Well, thank you. I think that the olive is a great tree. I think it's a great tree. It lasts for thousands of years. So as opposed to, I think there's some that I read about that are like 2,500 years old, 2,200, like real old trees. I love the fact that they are so culturally connected as a thing that exists as a place, not the fruit, not the food, but the tree itself. The tree itself is revered, and the tree itself is like the branches of it get sent down to the descendants as, my gift to you. Here's my chair.
Yeah.
Here's my car. Here's my carriage. You can have my horse. You get the goodest, best branch of my olive tree.
Right.
Because you're my favorite, and you rustle their hair.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's great. As a cultural thing, usually pomegranates and other things, huge cultural things, but that's the fruit. That's just the fruit. It's not the whole pomegranate shrub bush tree thing.
Wait, did this person give out a car and a horse and a carriage?
Yeah.
What year do you think this death occurred?
1916.
Okay. Well, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going by the
So we're talking
stats,
like a Model T.
This is Model T, like OG. When was the first Godfather?
I don't know.
It was that year.
The 70s, I think.
When did it take place?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
The 20s, I think.
Anyway, stop asking questions, Alex.
All right. Go ahead.
I'm just joking. Always ask questions. So whenever he gave
it's
his
like
Model
a scientific
T,
question. I was calling you out on the
on my the
logic gap.
my made up will that I was just coming up with at the time.
I love when you ask questions, Alex. Thanks a lot.
I love it. Yeah, really good job. So, okay, back to the olive. I love olive oil. I think it tastes delicious. I love cooking with it.
Yeah.
Did you know many times if it's a black olive in a can, they actually artificially turn it black? Yeah, usually it's cut before that. Then they add in some certain chemical, turns it black.
Wow.
Did you know extra virgin olive oil has no other chemicals in it? It's exactly what it is. They press it, squirt it out. That's EVOO, as they call it in the hip world. Whereas if you have other kinds, they are actually less flavorful, higher smoke point, but they add in different chemicals to make it pure.
Interesting.
Yeah, which is kind of like, come on, it's already pure. It's from a tree. By definition, it's perfect.
Sure.
So these things taken in mind, it makes me think, okay, this is a bit of an industry. I don't like that this tree is the equivalent of those muggles jammed into the Matrix. That Neo goes out and sees all these people in the lines.
I've never seen The Matrix.
Are you kidding me?
Don't get hung up on that.
Did we talk about this already?
Finish your fucking review.
I don't know if I can anymore, Alex. Oh my God. Okay. All right. I'm gonna try and go through this, but you're gonna hear the shock in my voice this whole time. I think my voice is cracking. Anyway, it's this they're a cash crop. They're a big crop. They're causing trouble because of course there's thousands and thousands of acres, but they're so delicious. And I'm gonna focus in on like the old world Mediterranean view of the olives, where it's so revered. It's almost like wine in France,
Yeah.
Where the terroir, the color, the veraison of the whole thing,
right,
is super super important. And I think for that, not to mention, let's get back to the facts of it. It's an evergreen an evergreen tree that can be grown here in Oregon as a street tree. Beautiful, produces little teeny tiny olives. And it is a stunningly gorgeous trunked tree. You know how I feel about a good trunk.
You love a good trunk.
Love
you love
a
some
good trunk.
junk in the trunk.
So I'm going to give the olive a solid 7.7.
7.7.
7.7 for this tree because it lasts a long time. It's revered as a tree, and I love olive oil so much. I think it's almost a problem.
I think giving it 7.7, like in the same, they're the same number, is stronger than it would be a 7.6 because it's unified.
Yeah, or a 7.9 or 8 in this case also.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true.
I think so. That would actually make it a little less.
All right.
That's what I think, Alex. I think it's a solid tree.
Wonderful.
And, that's what I'm going to give it.
A great rating for the olive.
Yeah, it really came out.
7.7 Golden Poems of Honor from Casey Clapp.
Yeah, that's specifically cold pressed from Casey Clapp.
Okay.
Yeah, just being clear.
Cold pressed Golden Poems of Honor.
Yeah,
this
delicious.
season's getting out of hand.
It's getting a pretty niche.
All right.
Yeah. Where you at here?
I really like the olive. I didn't know almost anything about it until today.
How do you feel like you have increased your knowledge somewhat?
Yeah.
Perfect.
By 100%. In fact, I wasn't totally sure it was a tree.
Oh, okay.
Of course, I've heard olive tree.
Sure.
You know, okay, yeah. But, these things are nebulous sometimes.
Yeah.
What if it was, like, technically a vine?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're telling me.
Doesn't an olive seem like something that might grow on a vine?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I think it does. Yeah.
I associate it with grapes because it's Italian and grapes grow on a vine.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the logic I made there.
Yeah. Isn't olive branch, isn't that piece like extend an olive branch?
Oh, yes.
Isn't that also there? Okay, yeah. Sorry. Not trying to change anything.
Also a of Greek origin, I think.
God, man, we got to get out of this country.
I like the olive a lot, and I could go into why, but I think my score will speak for itself. 8.8 Golden Poems of Honor.
Wow, stronger than an 8.9 or an 8.7.
Yeah.
Really? What gives it that extra 1.1? As opposed
from
to mine?
your score?
Yeah.
I don't know, Mike. I think just that my cones are my own, and I'm feeling it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right.
It's like it doesn't really have a drawback. It's just sort of like, well, why not give it a 10, Alex? Well, I'm not feeling a 10 in my heart.
You know what? It doesn't have a drawback, but yeah, I think that's just a gut feeling, Sometimes you just, I know everyone thinks we just made this up. We've spent years developing our criteria for our Golden Poems of Honor.
Yeah.
So just to be clear,
everyone thinks it's like everyone takes the name completely arbitrary at face value.
Exactly.
But there's we have supercomputers running an algorithm almost 24/7.
Yeah, honestly, we actually bought them from Bitcoin miners, and we had to use them over for this algorithm. It's so intense.
I think we should move to Ethereum.
I think we should, yeah. So Ethereum miners.
It's worse for the environment. So.
Oh, good. Perfect.
And as you know, let me just stop the recording here. As you know, Casey, you and I are sort of like evil land barons.
I'm glad you stopped it while I admit that I'm invested heavily in coal. Anyway, okay, unpause.
That's so not funny. All right, that was our review of the olive tree.
Wow, what a good showing. Man, that makes me want to go eat olive thing. No, I'm sorry, olive oil. Not eat olives.
Yes, I think we should induct the olive tree into some sort of hall of honor.
Oh,
olive honor.
Oh man, well we're gonna have to come up with a whole new algorithm to figure out what makes it into the hall of honor.
How about we just go? How about we do a into the golden arboretum?
Yeah, I like that.
We plant an olive tree in the golden arboretum.
Yep, perfect. Well done.
Casey, it's time for our completely arbitrary Q&A. Today's question is from Katie Munoz. Sorry, Katie.
So, we apologize right off the bat.
Katie says, and this is from the Patreon, Katie says, love your podcast. I understand that many fruit trees are not self-fertile. I can see the evolutionary advantage, but I can't figure out how the female flowers would know what pollen to reject. I've been wondering about this for years. Casey, I have no idea what this question means. Do you?
Yes, I do. So what it is essentially referring to is the idea of self-pollination.
Yeah.
Which would be, if you have one tree that doesn't have perfect flowers, or if it does, it has a female and male flower on the same tree. Why would the male flower producing the pollen, not just have pollen that goes right up to the female flower and then pollinate it and then create a new tree.
Well, isn't that kind of across the board a bad idea for living things?
It generally is, yeah. Now some trees can do it and they're just like, okay, cool, we're just going to essentially clone myself and then have it work.
Clonal reproduction.
Exactly, which is a little bit different. I shouldn't put those together. Clonal reproduction is you grow a new tree from the root, like the aspen.
Oh, yeah.
Or you just take a clipping and you graft it onto something else, and then now you have the same thing.
Like how a willow's branch will break off and grow a new willow.
Yeah, that is exactly. It's a vegetative reproduction where it clones itself. So in this case, it is a bad idea because you want that bigger diversity of genes to add into your gene pool. If it's just yours back and forth, it tends to get a lot more mutations. I don't know exactly why that's happened. I know this has come up before, and I failed to look into it.
Diversity makes us stronger.
Exactly. So this happens at all the way down to that gene level, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
So otherwise, the way that some plants do it is they would actually have one of their female parts of their plant would not be active while the male parts are. If it's one individual flower.
Sure.
There's one flower. Why can I not think of it? Gosh, it's right at the tip of my tongue.
Magnolia?
We've
talked about magnolias turning off and on their parts.
And so they do that. But there's another one I'm thinking of explicitly that I just can't recall off the top of my head. The female part, the flower wouldn't close again. It would just kind of turn on and turn off. And you need water. The pollen needs to land on something that's moist because that water then kind of activates it and allows it to grow down into the through that style down into the ovary.
Oh, sure.
Into the ovum, the egg itself.
The same principle that reminds me so much of if you're putting moisturizer on your skin.
Yeah,
you should get your skin wet first because as the water dries, your skin will absorb.
Oh my God.
That moisturizer as opposed to putting it onto dry skin.
Yeah,
it may not absorb as well.
It's probably exactly the same idea.
Yeah.
At least to some extent. There's probably
or maybe not.
Or maybe not.
And I'm just drawing a mental connection.
Hey, that's okay because I do that. I do this all the time to help give people an idea of how this works.
Yeah.
Even if it's not exactly the same, the principles probably at a fundamental level are the same.
Yeah.
Anyway, the pollen grain. Sometimes it is just outright rejected. Like the female flower would be like, no. It just says no, it just physically cannot grow there. Other times it would not be wet, it would be dry, so if the pollen grain lands on there, it just can't grow, can't do it.
Interesting.
And then so if the other one comes and it lands on there, it would have just enough gene difference that the flower would essentially not block it and then it can grow down into it. So that's what happens sometimes. Other times they try to avoid it by growing on different sides of the tree, so conifers do this a lot, where you can have the female cones would be at the top of the tree and the male cones would be at the bottom of the tree. So then it has a less likely opportunity to just go straight up and land on the female flowers.
Smart.
Yeah. So like you said, it's the right idea across the board because diversity creates stronger genes that have fewer mutations. So you have a better chance of having a super successful offspring for whatever happens. And so that essentially is that's how they do it. They generally turn it off, turn it on. Some will have avoided it entirely by just having one tree that produces male flowers, one that produces female flowers, and that's dioecious.
Right.
Avoids the problem entirely because you can never do it to yourself. You always have to have your thing go to someone else's tree, and then that tree will be the one that produces the seeds.
Great. Interesting.
So it's down to like fundamental small little gene things and then having certain parts turn on, certain parts turn off at different times. And then of course ending with the sometimes it's just genetically and physically not acceptable for whatever reason. And it might be that it does get into a flower, but then once it gets down, that flower just doesn't, or the seed doesn't react until a new one comes in and can kind of bash its way through. So
there you have it.
There it is.
Thank you so much for your question, Katie. And if you have a question for Casey about trees, email us at arbortrarypod@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at arbortrarypod. That's ARBORTRARY pod. Or support this podcast on our Patreon, patreon.com/arbortrarypod. You can join the Arboretum for $5 a month and get 2 bonus episodes fortnightly.
That's the perfect term. I love it.
Or you can join the Cone of the Month Club and get a die-cut cone sticker illustrated by an independent artist every single month with a little info card. It's very fun and cute. Casey.
Alex.
I want to say something here.
You want to rub yourself in olive oil is what it is.
Yes, if you give me 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Casey, we have shirts.
Oh my gosh, that is so right.
Now, we're recording this episode a little ahead of time, so it will be hilarious if we sell out again by the time this premieres.
By the time this comes.
And if that's the case, I'm really sorry for saying this.
Yeah.
But as of right now, we have shirts back in our shop. If you're wanting a Completely Arbortrary shirt, arbortrarypod.com/merch. You can find them there. A bunch of other stickers and sticker sheets and many fun things happening there.
Yeah, and we're hoping to do a to have this not happen again, where we have some huge gap in it. So hopefully, keep checking back, and we'll have not only shirts of the kind you already may be familiar with, but new shirts with new cool designs.
That's right. We're working on ramping up our merch. I will say, Casey and I are sole members of this business that we're making.
Yeah.
We have no help. Your partner, Hannah, is extremely helpful.
Oh my gosh.
Packing things and packing the Cone of the Month Club.
Yeah.
But essentially, you and I run this business alone. So we're very grateful for everybody's patience in us doing basically anything.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, but we didn't start this saying, hey, Alex, I know, you know how to make a podcast. Let's do that and turn it into something that's successful and fun. Now, we just started talking into microphones one day because we have a specific set of skills. And then we quickly learned that we need more sets of skills.
Yes, it's very challenging, and I know many of you are very patient, and I don't think we've had anybody reach out to us and be upset in any way that we are so behind the ball on all this stuff. But it's a challenge, and it's new to us, and it takes some time and some skill set learning. So we're very appreciative of everybody who supports the podcast in any way. Even listening to it supports us.
Yes.
And that's all I got to say about that. Casey.
Alex, great work.
You too.
We're going to see you next week.
Thank you so much for listening to Completely Arbortrary. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Oh, bye-bye. Completely Arbortrary is produced by Alex Crowson and Casey Clapp.
Our artwork is by Jillian Barthold, and our music is by Aves and the Mini Vandals.
And you can support the podcast at patreon.com/arbortrarypod.
And find additional readings at completelyarbortrary.com. Thanks for listening.